Hello and welcome everybody to our Pillar Strength and Movement Prep class. I'm your health fitness specialist Quinn with Exercise Autodesk, and we are going to get moving here today. So again, the focus of this class is just going to be working on our stability control and prepping the body for movement, getting a lot of really good functional and foundational work in, targeting commonly found weak areas and exposed areas of body that often become underactive throughout our daily life. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started here. All right, first thing we're going to do is our warm-up, starting with a little bit of cat-cow. So getting down into our quadruped position, we are going to bring the back up towards the ceiling, curving and rounding out that back there, sucking the belly button up to the spine and dropping the belly down, rounding the back down towards the ground, lowering the belly button down and pulling back up. Just getting some solid spinal mobility and movement there. Going back and forth between both up and down. Okay, and from here, we're going to go into our shoulder retraction. So bring your hands out in front, pointing your finger forward. You're going to keep those shoulders nice and low as we pull them back and away from the ear, pinching through the back and then releasing and pressing the shoulders and hand forward, keeping our elbows extended the whole time. We're not bending at the elbow, but just pulling those shoulder blades back and pressing forward. If you can imagine having an orange in the middle of your back and you want to try and squeeze it with the shoulders, moving back and forth here. And done. Good. Next up, we've got our quad rocks. So we're going to extend one leg out forward here like so, and sitting back into our heel, rocking down, then bringing that foot forward and moving back and forth between our extended and lunging position, getting nice movement through the hips. Back and forth. Go ahead and switch sides. Bring that other foot up forward and rocking back and forth. Driving that knee out over the toe and forward again. Just passing back and forth through our quads here. And done. Good. Next up, we're going to go into our circuit. So first exercise of the circuit here is going to be our Supermans. So we're going to lie straight down onto our chest, extending the hands out in front. From here, we're going to pick the hands and feet up, off the ground, holding, Pulling those shoulder blades away from the ear, squeezing that orange on the back, really pinching those shoulder blades together, and lowering down, popping up, holding, keeping our hands and feet up, nice and extended, lowering down, and popping back up. Holding up, nice and extended. Last one. Popping both those feet up and lowering back down. Good. Next up, we have our shoulder push-ups. So that same motion we were working through with the shoulder retraction, we're going to work into here with the shoulder push-up. So keeping those elbows locked out, we're going to lower the chest down to the ground in our quadruped position here, and then press the chest away from the ground with our hands. So as you can see, I'm keeping my shoulders locked out. I'm relaxing those back muscles. I'm lowering my chest down, and then I'm pressing the ground away, using my chest and the front of my shoulder, just working through that shoulder mobility there. Back and forth. Hey, Sue, thanks for popping in.
Sorry, I almost forgot.
No problem. No problem. We're just going through our first little bit here. So on our second exercise, we've got our shoulder push-ups. So as you were seeing, I've got myself in the quadruped position here, just lowering the chest down and back up, working through that protraction and retraction of the shoulder, keeping those elbows bent or extended, not bent, but just pressing back and forth, lowering the chest down and back up. Prepping ourselves for the next movement, which is going to be our eccentric push-up. Okay, so you can get your hands, or keep your hands down. You can get your knees off the ground extended out, or keeping them down on the floor is fine. From here, we're just going to slowly lower ourselves down at a nice even pace. Once we get down, we're pressing ourselves back up, making sure that the weight stays even between both hands on the ground and even as we press back up. Nice and in control, really using all of the muscles, front and back, to stabilize the shoulder here as we lower ourselves down, and then pressing through, keeping all of that engagement as we come back up. Let's go. One more. And good. All right, next up, we're going to do our plank. So we got our forearms down on the ground here. We're going to press away from the ground, driving our hips up into the air, keeping our feet nice and supported below us, holding our hips nice and level with the shoulders, sucking the belly button up to the spine. Keeping that torso and trunk nice and tight. Trying to keep those hips up nice and level. Pressing all the way through the elbows into the toes, creating one connected line all the way through. A few more seconds. and rest. Good. Next up, we've got our dead bugs. So flipping over onto our back, getting our feet on the floor, knees up. We're going to bring those feet up to 90 degrees. Hands go on top of the knees, and we're extending one foot out and opposite hand back over the head. Coming back to the middle, nice and even. Extending straight out with one line, pulling that lower back down into the floor, not letting things round out there. Really keeping that torso nice and engaged. Just moving nice and easy through each side. Couple more. Almost there. And finished. Good. Next up, we have our leg raises. So staying in this laying down position, we're going to extend the legs straight out, getting our heels up off the floor. You can get your hands underneath your hips for a little bit more leverage, but we want to pull that back flat into the ground. And then from here, we're going to sweep the feet up, getting up to 90 or as high as we'll go, and lowering back down. Nice, even, controlled pace. The way down is just as important as the way up. So getting that control as we lower the weight of our legs down is where we actually get a lot of that abdominal and hip activation there to really strengthen those muscles. Few more. And finished. Good. Next up, we've got our bird dogs. So getting our hands underneath the shoulder, knees down on the ground into our quadruped position here. Same thing as those dead bugs, we're going to extend out opposite hand and foot, stabilizing up at the top and holding. Got a nice balance here, nice and stable position, holding that cross stability from toe to foot. And lowering down, switching sides, extending out. Holding at the top here. Nice, even hold. And lowering down. Very good. Next up from here, we've got our kickbacks. So staying in that quadruped position, we're going to bring one knee slightly off the floor and swing that leg up and extending back. Moving back and forth. Hinging that hip backwards, kicking straight out behind us. Trying not to open up that hip, keeping that knee facing downwards and extending out the whole time. And go ahead and switch sides. Couple more, keeping that belly button sucked up to the spine as we're working here. Knee stays pointed down towards the ground. Keeping those hips square towards the ground. And finish. Good. Next up, we're going to flip over onto our backs, getting our feet down on the ground. We got our glute bridges. So we're going to get some holds here, just like those bird dogs. So from here, we're going to get our hands down on the ground and drive through our heels to bring the hips straight up and getting them nice and in line in between our shoulders and our knees. Holding at the top here. Getting a nice tight hold as we pull those hips up towards the ceiling. And slowly lowering down, giving us a tap at the bottom and popping straight back up. Holding. Keeping those hips up, sucking that belly button down the spine. Lowering down. Let's go one more, driving up, holding up at the top. Nice flat line from the shoulder through the hips, through the knees, getting those hips all the way up and lowering down. Very good. All right. Halfway there, now starting back at the top with our Supermans, flipping over, extending the hands out, feet back, and bringing the hands and feet up, holding at the top. Getting nice, extended. Pulling those shoulder blades down towards the hips, keeping those hands up and dropping down, coming back up, extending those hands and feet out, pressing away from the body, keeping those feet off the ground, hands up in front, and lowering down. One more, popping up. Extending those hands out, pulling the shoulders down towards the hips. And lowering down. Nice job. Next up, we got our shoulder push-ups. Getting our hands down on the ground. Lowering the chest down towards the ground, keeping the elbows locked and extended. Pressing the ground away as we bring the chest back away from the ground and lowering down again, working on that mobility through the chest and the shoulder, keeping the belly button tucked up to the spine, not rounding out the back as we drop the chest down, but keeping that torso engaged and rigid. Should be feeling this deep into the shoulder as we move back and forth. And done. Good. Next up, we've got our eccentric push-ups. So staying in that quadruped position, getting our feet up, we're gonna drop down nice and slow, pressing the ground straight away as we come back up. Getting a very controlled, slow lowering and pressing the ground away. Sucking that belly button up to the spine, keeping that back nice and flat, driving away. Few more. Pulling those shoulders away from the ear, squeezing that orange through the back. And done. Good. Next up, we've got our plank. So getting our elbows underneath the shoulder, driving those hips up, tucking the belly button up to the spine, keeping our hips level with the shoulders, pressing the ground away through the elbows, keeping that trunk nice and rigid, trying to create a connected line from the elbows through to the toes. The two things touching the ground, creating a nice connected arc through the torso and the hips and the legs. Few more seconds and lowering down. Very good. Next up, we've got our dead bugs. So flipping over onto our back. We're getting our feet up off the ground, hands on the knees, and extending opposite knee and hand back. Really pulling that lower back into the ground, not letting the spine arc out. Keeping everything nice and compact through the torso. Moving back and forth. Even pace. Keeping those feet up at 90 degrees. This has easily got to be one of my favorite exercises because of how much core stability you can work with here. Moving and extending those legs out, keeping the hips locked into the back and pulling that back down to the ground. A few more. And rest. Nice job. From there, we're going into our leg raises. So extending the legs out, getting our hands underneath those hips, pulling the back, the spine down to the ground, and sweeping the legs up as we lower them back down. Nice, even pace. Not swinging our hips up off the ground, not letting our heels touch the floor. Nice, even, and controlled. Solid, even pace. A few more. And rest. Good. Next up, we have our bird dogs. Almost there. So flipping over, hands underneath the shoulder, extending opposite foot and hand out, holding in a flat line. Nice and steady. Finding that side to side stability here. Pressing the ground away, sucking that belly button up to the spine. Knees pointed down to the ground, foot all the way extended out. And switching sides. Holding for just a few more seconds. Almost there. And down. Good. Next up, we've got our kickbacks. Almost finished here. Staying in that quadruped position. We're extending the leg back out behind us. Straight back, keeping that knee pointed down. We're not opening up the hips here. Extending that leg as high as it'll go. Trying to keep that knee straight. And extending out. And switching sides. Kicking that heel straight back towards the ceiling. Trying to keep that knee pointed down. A few more. And finished. All right, last exercise we got is our glute bridge. So laying flat on our back again, heels down on the ground. We're gonna drive the hips up towards the ceiling through the heels, creating a nice flat line. Holding up at the top. Keeping those knees pulled in together, not flaring out wide, but keeping them nice and tight. Still sucking that belly button down to the spine as we bring those hips up, creating a nice flat line from the shoulder through the hips to the knees. And slowly lowering down, giving a tap at the bottom and coming back up. Holding up at the top. And lowering back down. Last one here, driving up. Holding at the top. Creating that flat line all the way through. And lowering back down. Awesome. Finished. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for coming in today. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. And don't forget, we are hosting our Design to Run program at the end of March. The way to sign up for that is just by scheduling a consultation with Jazzy or myself. Being a part of the program, you get to participate in our virtual race, which we may be holding in person this year, but also we will be having a training program that will be surrounded around making you guys better, faster, stronger runners. So don't forget to check that out, sign up using our SharePoint link and checking out our consults. Thanks so much for coming in.